What's happening in this country with deportation is just another prime example of how America is an absolutely racist country, specifically against black and brown people. I mean, if you really can sit there and say that America is not a racist country, you obviously live with your eyes closed, your ears blocked, and just ignorance is bliss. Because what's happening right now with the deportations is 1,000% racial profiling. If you are brown, if you look Hispanic, God forbid you speak Spanish, God forbid all of the above, you're probably going to be approached, detained, have your window broken by ICE, thrown to the ground, put in deplorable conditions. It's sickening. And Trump has just made it okay to be out and proud about racism, and it's despicable. I hate it so much.
Hello guys, welcome once again to the channel. I hope wherever you're watching, you're having a great time. Now, many times you've always talked about how America is continuing to be racist against colored people, especially black Americans. And sometimes when we talk about these things, some people tend to think that whatever we are engaged in is a form of disinformation or trying to push some messages that are not really factual, because they believe that in America, racism does not exist. But ask a black person who is applying for a job with same qualifications with that of a white person. As long as someone has a black name, the possibility of them receiving a callback is reduced to almost 50%, because studies have shown that those with black names, job applicants with black names, are less likely to be given a callback as compared to those with white names with similar qualifications. And this tells you that racism still is entrenched in America, and it exists to date. While many might want to have this information cancelled and removed, that remains to be reality. And who can tell us this best, apart from whites who live in America? Because sometimes there are those whites who want to live in denial, but then there are others who have received this awakening and they know what America is doing to others and how America is not fair to them to date. So in this video, I want to play for you a clip of some whites speaking about how their nation, that is America, is so racist that they don't even know how they can rescue it from the challenges that is going through. I want you to listen to the clip. I shall come back in the end with my commentaries.
Trump launched his campaign by calling immigrants rapists. That was a message to a subset of white voters. It was a dog whistle. That comment tapped into the age-old racist fear formula that's been around forever, that people of color, especially men, are violent, hypersexual, and dangerous. That lie has been perpetuated to justify lynchings, often with a white woman claiming she was attacked, justified segregation. It built the prison system. We don't have overfull prisons because of crime. We have them because it feeds the myth that white people are safer when black people are behind bars. And now it justifies cages at the border and in El Salvador. The babies are just collateral damage. We can't have their rapist parents running around loose now, can we? And we're not supposed to say out loud that we're supposed to be afraid of who those little kids are going to grow into. You see that pattern? It's not about crime. It's not about safety. That's a red herring. It's about control. Black people are criminalized through traffic stops, drug laws, and policing strategies that treat skin color as a threat. And racial profiling is a valid way to identify suspects. Immigrants are criminalized with border walls, ICE raids, and detention centers that punish people for seeking sanctuary. If this were about keeping us safe, how would all of those people be the same color? And wouldn't they all have some sort of criminal record? It's not about safety. It's about racism. And when either group, immigrants, or black people, speaks up through protests or lawsuits, just tells the truth, they're labeled dangerous. They're treated like terrorists. But the real terrorists are working for the man, the establishment, as we used to say. They're working for the President of the United States. The system Trump is playing into was never designed to give rights to black and brown people. There has never been any intention to make that happen. He has never hinted at it, as his predecessors always did. He sees no reason to pretend anymore. The system was designed to produce labor and silence dissenting voices and distract us from the work that we are doing so that we don't see what's really being done by them. When Trump calls immigrants rapists, he's not just slipping into accidental hyperbole. He's doing what powerful white men have always done, instilling fear to protect their place at the top. Why do you think George W. Bush started his war with Iraq? We were already afraid due to the World Trade Center attacks. It was the perfect time to show how the big, strong president was saving the day, and it was shortly before the election. Why did Trump attack Iran? Well, we're already afraid of what zany antics he's going to perform next. Did you hear that the Pentagon gives him false information so that he won't leak top secret info in his Truth Social tweets? He bombed Iran because he wanted to show us he was a big, manly man after his little parade didn't work out and his feelings were hurt. When Trump calls black communities war zones and says he's the only one who can fix it, that's a sales pitch. It's some art of the deal or some shit. It's a deal that promises white Americans they'll be safe because some other group of people is scapegoated in horrible and inexcusable ways. White people, we've got to stop letting that happen. Because rapist is not just exaggeration or Trump being Trump. It's strategy, and it's time to stop pretending we don't see through it. The immigration crisis is about racism. Political racism is about controlling all of us. Political racism guides and feeds cultural racism, and this culture is full of people who refuse to look any closer than, well, they won't look. I post this stuff in hopes of reaching someone who will join the resistance in their community. White people, these things are not happening to us yet, and that's an important reason for us to speak up. Let the powers that be know that you see what they're doing. Let your neighbors know you're on their side. Get curious.
All white people benefit from racism. Racism is systemic. It's not a few instances of someone calling a black person a slur. Racism is literally ingrained into every single system that affects how the world and America operate. And most white people don't realize how they benefit from racism. Because of their privilege, they are afforded the luxury of being able to ignore oppressive systems around them. And since racism is literally instilled in people from birth by society and sometimes family members as well, the only way that white people can escape their bias is by learning from people whose lives are consistently affected by marginalization and oppression. It also helps having parents who are actively anti-racist. But 99% of the time, white people have to make a conscious decision to actively unlearn everything that they've been taught about whiteness and what it means to be white in America. And there's no way to do that without deciding to put your feelings of discomfort to the side. White fragility has helped white people stay away from these conversations and any actions of change because they can just say, well, this makes me uncomfortable. I don't know what to do. I don't know enough about this. And so they're able to just not talk about it, not do anything, and not make a difference, and continue benefiting from the systems that oppress other people until they decide to learn about these systems and how they benefit from them and decide to care from that point on about making a change, nothing's going to change. Many people are blind to the ways in which systemic racism helps them. And a lot of people do not want to be inconvenienced by being anti-racist. They're like, this doesn't affect me. I don't know any black people. Why should I have to do anything? I can't do anything. I'm just one person. Okay, but if every single person says I can't do anything and no one does anything, then what changes? Black people, brown people, people of color, disabled people, LGBTQ plus people, marginalized communities are not going to be the ones to make the change because of course they care about their own oppression. Nothing is going to change until the people within the oppressive group, doesn't mean that they are actively oppressing others, but they have that power to oppress people. Until they realize there's an issue and care enough about the issues, nothing will change.
White people are obsessed with black people, which is why racists exist. Because in order to be racist, you need to wake up every day and just continuously think about why you don't like a person or a group of people based on the color of their skin. In response to my video about the young Republican group chat in which they joked about racism, anti-Semitism, gas chambers, I got several responses like this saying, you're acting like black people don't talk about white people the same way we talk about you in your group chats. Black people do not think about white people at all. And I know that's probably hard for you guys to comprehend because you think about us so much. Our lives do not revolve around what white people are doing, what white people are saying. We do not talk about you guys when you're not in the room. We don't talk about you even when you are in the room unless you do something. Half of the commentary you see from black people, including myself, that is online, comes in response to you guys doing or saying some crazy shit. And in reality, the only thing that black people want is to be left alone by white people. But you guys won't leave us alone because you think about us all the time. And if you don't believe me, maybe you'll believe someone who looks like you.
Black people want to be left alone. They don't want revenge. They don't want to replace us, as some extremist groups have said. They just want to live life in peace, the way they want to live. They want family, they want love, and they want to live in a society where they know they belong here. They want society to also know that they belong here.
That's not culturally a thing that we do, but apparently it's something you do, so you think that we're sitting around pondering about what you're doing. This goes back to why white women think that they're the managers of the world, so they can come question black people and what they're doing. You can stalk us outside. You can have all these thinks and thought pieces about how we exist. And it's like, I've never really understood it, but it's because you guys are infatuated with the idea of one, us being free citizens to think, vote, have jobs, and make money. Two, we're not subjugated by you literally like we used to be. Three, it's like a weird obsession where you want to be liked by us and you want us to think that you're cool. And four, a combination of all the above. But sorry, to answer your question, no, we do not have group chats where we sit around talking about white people. I hope that helps you on this beautiful Sunday. Stay blessed.
I'm just gonna go ahead and say the thing as a white woman that you're not supposed to say, but racism is just jealousy. It's just pure, unadulterated jealousy. Because you know what I think every fucking time I see a black woman? Jesus, she is beautiful. Good God, look at her skin. It is so pretty. Every time I see a black woman, I'm just like, oh, you know? And that's how I know. And it's also because I grew up around white people and I know how they are and how they think. And baby, it's just jealousy. Always has been.
It was mostly white people today. White people. And I'm not an emotional person. I don't cry. I don't get emotional. I'm emotional right now because I feel for the first time ever a sense of hope to know that every white person out there is not racist, that not everybody supports Trump, because I'm here in Tennessee and that's how it feels sometimes. But today when I looked at those protests, I saw the streets lined with all kinds of people, but the large majority of white people that said this is enough. We are standing up and it's our time to do for others, to do for those that have been standing behind us for so many years and that have faced so much injustice. Black people have been fighting for years and nothing comes of it. Nothing. They're exhausted. Hispanics can't leave the house. Anybody with brown skin is afraid to even leave the house. So to know that we cared enough today means we're moving in the right direction. And I hope we see this continue, that we stand by our brothers and sisters and fight for them and let everyone know this is not okay.
On my walk this morning, I figured out the one thing that will allow his white supremacist red hat base to leave their orange Jesus. The felonies, they don't care. Tax fraud, the racism, the misogyny, questioning the birth of Barack Obama, our first black president, insulting disabled people, mocking our veterans who actually had the backbone to serve our country, unlike that little bitch, Bone Spurs, cheating on his wife with a porn star while she's at home with their 2-week-old son. Yeah, such Christ-like values, people. The insurrection that led to the death of multiple officers, none of that matters. But if Donald Trump came out as trans today, they would leave the Republican Party within an hour, because you're a bunch of goddamn bigots. You're the biggest bunch of hypocrites that this country has ever seen. You're a bunch of white supremacists that traded in your white hoods for a red hat. You'll accept any level of morality and decency from an uneducated, morally bankrupt, petulant white man with the IQ of a third grader, as long as he makes your racism and your misogyny and your bigotry feel good. But Paul, being trans is outside of the design of God. Yeah, and everything else wasn't. But as long as they're white, hey, you know, nobody's perfect. So y'all can screw the hell off. You're a bunch of damn bigots.
White people would rather lose democracy than give black and brown people access to it. And the way that America is responding to the ICE protests and the Palestinian protests just proves this. Who the state tries to protect and who it tells you is a threat shows you who it was built for. You notice the military was never called in for January 6th, but somehow they're called in for the ICE protests. 2, white people always confuse control with safety. And this is because whiteness believes in a power hierarchy. And this power hierarchy represents a spectrum of color, with white males at the top and everyone else in descending order. Any perceived threat to the control of white males is met with an incredibly exaggerated and emotional response, while real threats to the physical safety of black and brown bodies are considered irrelevant and minimized. And any attempt by the press or others to highlight this threat is squashed. Which leads us to number 3 and what this country was built on, which is white grievance politics is happy to burn down the whole house. From blocking voting rights bills to militarized crackdowns, a huge percentage of white Americans are willing to shrink democracy itself rather than share it and care for all the citizens. Democracy isn't a privilege reserved for a few. It's a promise that must be defended for everyone. When we fight for immigrant justice, racial equality, the right to the LGBTQIA community, and environmental justice, we don't just expand democracy, we safeguard it. Because if we don't fight for democracy and justice for all, we risk losing it entirely. I hope this helps.
This one's for the Southern men. Not the politicians, not the bootlickers in Washington pretending to know bourbon from Boone's Farm. No, I'm talking to the good old boys. The poor but proud, the ones who can bait a hook and throw a punch. The ones who cry at funerals and grin through pain and tip their hats even when the world spits in their face. The ones that sound like me and look like me and were raised like me, but somewhere out here on this long stretch of American decline, you've lost the damn map. What in the holy goddamn hell happened to you? Once upon a time, a Southern man was many things, some good, some bad, but almost always real. You could hear it in the callous vowels of his draw and see it in the crack of his knuckles. He stood for something. He stood up even when the wind blew hard against him. He didn't need a flag the size of a billboard or a Facebook profile, soaked in eagles and assault rifles to prove he loved his home. He just lived it, quietly and fiercely, with a bite and a laugh. And now your heroes are Donald Trump Jr., a taxidermed mannequin in a vast pro vest, and Eric Trump, a human gaff. J.D. Vance, who sells Appalachian grit like it's a can of soup, and Tom Cotton, a poster boy for robotic boot polishers. These are your Marlboro men? These aren't Southern men. They aren't even men in the sense my grandfather meant it. They're simpering little power fetishists in tailored camouflage, chugging masculinity supplements and playing Patriot on sound stages built by Wall Street. If these boys walked into the Quintet clubs in Helena, Arkansas, they wouldn't make it past the jukebox. My granddaddy would have squinted at them, growled, and then beat the ever-living dog shit out of them just out of instinct. He bar fought like it was a second job, and not because he was proud of it necessarily. He actually rarely spoke of it, but because where we come from, there's a language older than words. And sometimes in a world full of liars and leeches, a fist is just shorthand for don't tread on me. He didn't fight for ego. He fought to defend the sacred ground between the front porch and the bar stool. And if you walked in greasy, smug, and full of yourself, the kind of man who'd lie to the waitress and kick a dog, he made sure you left different than you arrived. Donald Trump is just a New York greaseball with hands softer than an overripe peach and a mouth that runs like it's late to a poker game. His sons are worse. Soulless little guys dipped in deer piss and bravado. Junior, with his desperate little beard and his safari outfit, looks like a guy who tries to start fights at Little League games and calls security if it gets sideways. Eric, God bless him, is the kind of guy you'd hand a hammer and spend the next hour and a half watching him try to unscrew a nail. They're not men. They're just hair-gelled cartoons playing lumberjack. They don't work. They don't serve. They don't sacrifice. They don't build or fix or do a goddamn thing but inherit money and lie about it. And yet somehow these are the new standard by which manhood is measured. My God, how far we've fallen. They exhibit nothing, not one thing that we were raised to believe makes a man. Not courage, not humility, not grit, not loyalty, not strength of heart or spine or word. They sweat when it's humid, they pout when it's hard, and they run when it's dangerous. They wouldn't last 5 minutes under a tractor. They wouldn't know how to change their own oil. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying violence is virtue or that bar fights make a man. I don't think manhood is some holy grail to be earned through broken noses. That's cheap thinking. That's the kind of thinking they sell now. Packaged rage, televised chest beating, a bunch of cosplay cowboys co-signing each other's insecurities on cable news. Manliness isn't in your fist or your flag decals. It's in the quiet things, the hard things, the true things. And these boys you worship now wouldn't last 5 minutes in the world you walk through daily. The part that turns my stomach is this. A Southern man, a real one, wouldn't stand for how these clowns behave in public, not toward his wife, not toward his daughters, not toward his children or anyone else's for that matter. He damn sure wouldn't let some orange-tinted loudmouth mock a disabled person or insult a widow, brag about assault, or spit bile at working folks just trying to get by. His mother would have slapped his mouth clean off for half the things these men say, and his grandmother wouldn't even have wasted her breath. We were raised by steel and iron women in church dresses who carried casseroles in one hand and consequences in the other, and now you fly flags with a man's name on them. You worship him like a savior, and you can say you voted for the lesser of two evils if you want, maybe you did, but when you defend him, when you excuse him, when you wave his banner like it's a Stars and Stripes reborn, you're not just complicit, you've already sold your soul. And I don't pretend to have the definition of manhood carved in stone. In fact, I think most definitions are too brittle and break under real pressure. But I do know what it's not. It's not inherited money and gold-plated toilets. It's not screaming on a stage while other people fight your wars and pay your debts. It's not throwing tantrums on television and calling it truth. No. A man is what he does when the storms come. A man is how he treats people who can't do a damn thing for him. A man is what he says when no one is looking, and how he loves when no one else understands. And these slick-haired frauds wouldn't recognize that man if he offered to help him jumpstart their helicopter. We're the truth tellers. The ones who called out bullshit even when it came from their own side, the ones who didn't kneel to power or party, the ones who didn't want a king, but dared to be goddamn citizens. We have never been perfect down here. God knows the South has blood in its roots and ghosts in its halls, but at least we did have some kind of honor. Raw and flawed, but ours. But now we have cowards playing cowboy and wrapping themselves in Dixie nostalgia while licking the boots of northern con men. If you told my grandfather that one day Southern men would kneel, God help us, before Yankees with gold toilets and fake tans, he'd have thought you were drunk or possessed by the devil. But here we are. Men who once stared down hard times now waiting in line to be knighted by a game show host. You've made a liar of my grandfather. He told me we don't bend, we don't cower. We speak truth even when it's costly, that you measure a man not by the flags on his truck, but by the weight of his word. We stand on dirt, not marble. That a Southern man for his sins never kisses the ring. And now I see you cheer for the ringmaster and beg to be shackled to him. So let me tell you this, from one of your own, from someone who still walks the same black dirt and still sings the old songs, stand up. Stop kneeling for fools. Stop praising cowards. Reclaim whatever dignity that once defined you, not through cruelty and not through guns or flags or chants, but through truth and courage. Through the goddamn backbone that built barns and fought wars and buried family. You used to be better than this. Hell, we used to be better than this. Don't let it die with you. We're Southerners. We're unfit for crowns. We're too proud to bow and too tough to follow weak men with gold names and borrowed backbones. Let the South be known for its integrity and dignity. Let it remember what we claim to be and not what the world thinks we are. We've proven them right so goddamn often, I'm not sure we know how to prove them wrong. But for the love of God and biscuits, let's try.
Welcome back to the channel. Now, listening to what everybody has said there, I am sure you are able to see that the racism that exists in America cannot be helped. It is something that has been institutionalized. It is something that has existed over the years, and it will take a concerted effort from everybody to fight and eliminate this racism and discrimination against people of color from America. And this is something that I think everybody should join in and work towards achieving. In recent years, whites are increasingly exposed to historical facts through education and media, revealing systemic racism like slavery, Jim Crow laws, redlining, and mass incarceration that disproportionately harmed blacks, indigenous, and other people of color, facts that were long minimized in traditional narratives. Demographic shifts show whites becoming a minority in many areas by mid-century per census projections, prompting reflections on how policies favored wide accumulation of wealth and power while excluding others. In addition, high-profile police killings of black individuals captured on videos since 2014 and many more have gone viral, forcing whites to confront evidence of racial bias in law enforcement, backed by studies showing that higher use of force is prominent against minorities as compared to their white counterparts. Further, economic data highlights persistent gaps. Black households hold about an eighth of the wealth that white ones hold, according to Federal Reserve data, often traced to discriminatory practices, making inequality undeniable even to those previously unaware. Ultimately, social movements like Black Lives Matter, amplified on different platforms, have educated whites through personal stories and data, leading many of them to acknowledge that America has been complicit in building systems pegged on racial hierarchies to facilitate discrimination against black people. And that is what I guess is happening in America right now. Whites are realizing that there are a lot of things that are happening that have really revealed that America in itself is racist against black people, and blacks must wake up and understand that they must come together to fight the vice that comes with racism. Share your thoughts down in the comment section, and if you're watching us for the first time, remember to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share. Thank you. Let's meet on the next one.